I want to welcome everyone who's joining us today. And I am so excited to introduce you to Deepak Saini. He's an anti-aging and longevity coach. And he got into this after spending many stressed years in the corporate world and overcoming a lot. An autoimmune condition, correct me if I'm wrong, Deepak.
Yep.
An autoimmune condition, a back injury, and a lifelong battle with obesity. Is that all true?
That's all true.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And my guess is that really allows you to bring a very unique perspective to the work that you do with your clients.
It does.
And one of the things that I love, everybody knows that I love to combine ancient spirituality and wisdom with science. And that's exactly what Deepak does too. He blends that ancient ancestral wisdom with modern science to help people create higher energy, higher performance, and not just longevity, but a healthy life that's longer. And that's, I think, one of the things that's really big for me is, if I'm going to live another however many years, I want it to be a good living. So he does this so that people can be productive in their business, they can sleep better. And, as I was preparing to have this conversation, one of the things that I discovered is that most people, most adults don't get the required 7 hours of sleep a night, and that increases their risk of cancer by 200%, heart attack by 100%, and premature death by 20%. It's like, wow. So Deepak is going to talk to us today about his formula for greater happiness, less stress, finding purpose and balance in our lives, and having that optimal performance, whether it's in our careers or whether it's out just living life and enjoying. So welcome, Deepak. I'm so happy you're here with us today.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here myself. Two things I want to touch on really quick there that you already said. Yes, it's not about lifespan, it's about health span, how long you're healthy. I think we all want to, whenever that time comes for us, we all want to die as healthy as possible. We just want to just not wake up one day. We don't want to suffer for 20, 30, 40 years with XYZ. So I'm all about health span, not necessarily lifespan. That being said, I do have a public stated goal to be a centenarian plus. So I am planning to live to 100 plus. But again, what that means for me is not what most people think. And then the other thing I want to show on is what you talked about sleep. Absolutely. All those stats you just mentioned, those are absolutely true. If there's one thing that could really move, one thing only that someone could do to really move the dial on their health, is probably, really tackling sleep properly. And then you mentioned that 7 hours. And again, I'd say it is super, super individualized to people. One person's 6 hours is equivalent to another person's 8 hours. And of course, different life stages, activity levels, it's very, very individualized. So I just want to make that clear that, just because you're not maybe getting, so my sweet spot, and I'm not wearing it at the moment because it's charging, but I have the Oura ring where I track my sleep, and I've done so for 5 years now, and tested all different variables of what affects my sleep and everything. I wrote a blog post on that. Somebody could find that on my website if they wanted. But my sweet spot is 6 hours and 45 minutes to 7 hours and 15 minutes. Somewhere in that window is my perfect. Too less, I'm cranky. Too much, I'm still not optimized. So yeah, so I love that you brought that up.
Well, and I would guess that it also has to do with the quality of the sleep. I mean, I know sometimes I've had long sleep, but it hasn't been great sleep. And then other times I've had less sleep, but it's been really great, deep sleep. So am I right?
No, absolutely. And, so a lot of people think like, oh, well, I was in bed for 8 hours. I was in bed for 7 hours. I slept for 7 hours. It's like, if you're not actually tracking it with some sort of device, obviously being in a sleep lab is the gold standard, but who wants to do that? It's very invasive. And actually many people don't actually do well because they're not in their own environment. You got things on your head and blah, 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 and all these, sensors. It's actually terrible sleep. But in some way, I prefer rings. Some people have their watches or whatever. But it's not how long you're in bed. It's actual time sleeping. Many people, myself included, sometimes we I remember I got up to go to the bathroom, or I was thirsty, so I, had a sip of water or something. A lot of people remember that. but you'd be surprised how many times, and I'm not even talking sleep apnea. That's a whole nother ballgame altogether. How many times we all wake up in the middle of the night and we don't even realize that we've been sleep disturbed. So you're like, oh, I was in bed for 7 hours, but how long did you actually sleep? You might have only slept for 6 hours. If every time you got up, you were technically awake for 5 to 10 minutes every time. And you're absolutely right about the deep sleep. Again, we want a combination and the right balance of deep sleep and REM sleep. So deep sleep is very restorative for our physical bodies. So, for, recovery from exercise, et cetera, et cetera. And REM sleep is restorative for memories or for our mind, for memory consolidation. So again, if you're someone who's cognitively challenged for whatever reason, maybe the dementia, Alzheimer's, et cetera, you really want to make sure you're really getting that REM sleep. And if you're someone who works out a lot or has a physical type of job, you really want to make sure you get the deep sleep. Ideally, we want a combination of both. And deep sleep comes at the beginning of our night, and REM sleep comes at the back half of our night. So we got to make sure it's all balanced.
Okay. All right. So, as you've developed your formula for helping people have that great longevity, not just extra years, what are some of the things that we should really be thinking about right now? I mean, whatever age we are, 40, 50, 60, what are some of the things that we really need to be thinking about?
Yeah, first thing I'd say is number one is it's never too late to start. I've worked with people who had phenomenal results in their 70s. I've worked with people in their early 80s, and wherever you're coming from, you can always move the dial in the right direction. So I want to make sure people feel like, oh, I'm X years, it's too late. No, it's not. You can always make a positive impact. So I just want to say that first. Again, when I work with people one-on-one, there's sort of 7 big buckets. And there's multiple topics in all those buckets that I work on with people. And then I also have a group coaching program where we don't go as deep, and we touch on the first 5 of those. So I'll just really high level that for you now, and we can certainly dig in a little bit more in a second. So number 1 is what I call mindset and motivation. And I think it's really integral to get people in the right frame of mind and that healthy relationship of what aging could look like for them. It's the very first thing I work on with people, group or individualized. I think many people realize, if you're a rock star, you're a superstar, maybe sheer, willpower, determination, you might be able to make a habit change or a lifestyle change for like maybe a couple of years. Most people can't last 30 days with just by pure determination or willpower. What I find is that if you can tie your goals to some higher purpose, I like to call it my why or my mission, purpose, guiding light, whatever you want to call it. And I can talk about what mine is in a little bit when I talk about my story. I think that it makes it easier to go forward with whatever those challenges are. So that's very important for people. To number 1, mindset and motivation. Again, there's multiple topics in there. Number 2, controlling glycemic variability. Most people call that nutrition, but really making sure that we keep a stable blood sugar levels throughout our day, throughout our whole life. And then, of course, all the variables that go in that. And a lot of the foods that we eat are stressors to our bodies. Number 3 is movement that's right for you. Again, we're all coming from different places, different abilities, different ages, et cetera, different goals. Number 4 is controlling our automatic nervous system or our stress response. Sleep, which we talked about a few minutes ago, falls into that bucket. Environmental factors, which many people don't talk about at all the things that we can't do about our environment, but how do we mitigate them? And then also the things that we do to ourselves from an environmental point of view that maybe we want to take a second look at. So that's the top 5 that I work on in my group coaching program. And then with individuals, the bucket number 6 is what I call it don't do stupid things, but it's basically a risk reward analysis. So every decision we make, we make hundreds, if not thousands a day, has a risk reward benefit to it. And we don't think of most of them. They're they're not consequential. But for certain things that are more important or that are bigger, we really should need to look at it. So an example I like to give is, say you ride a motorbike. Great, that's your thing. Awesome. That's personally not for me, but sure. Do you wear a helmet? Okay, great. You wear a helmet. Do you wear leathers or, make sure you don't ratchet up your skin if you fall? Great, you do that too. Do you take supplements to ensure you're at optimal brain health? So if you should fall, if you should get a concussion, and this could go for any sort of contact sport, do you take those beforehand? And if you don't, do you at least have them on hand? So if you should get a concussion or some TBI, you can tackle it right away. If you're not, well, maybe that's something you need to think about. You need to put into your plan. You need to put into your lifestyle. So that's bucket number 6. And then the last bucket, which is not for everyone, but for those who are willing to take the time, the effort, or all the resources from time and maybe a monetary point of view as well, is all the latest and cutting edge science and technology. That could be, modalities for treatment. That could be using tech to get into certain states. I don't have anything within arm's reach at the moment, but I have devices that I can put me in a more meditative state. It can change my mood by just, electromagnetic frequencies. Like I said, have these glasses on, whole sorts of things. For example, someone could come to me and say, well, my doctor says I need shoulder surgery. Well, do you? Maybe one shot of stem cells in that joint might be all you need. Potentially. So, it's a conversation worth having. So for people who want to go down that route, I help them make that decision and even procure services for them as a bit of a concierge service as well. Again, that's for my one-on-one coaching clients only.
Okay. Hey, just real quickly, I believe you have a gift that you wanted to offer people.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, so I have a free guide and some of the things that I do myself in a daily practice. So it talks about some of these topics we're discussing today, and then there's also a tracking sheet so you can track your habit changes for 30 days. So it's a bit of a book and then a guide combined together. I'm going to just drop it in the chat here for everyone. Okay. Thank you for reminding me about that.
Okay,
so,
yeah, maybe drop it in the chat and then also on Facebook too.
I will do that as well, you bet.
Okay.
So yeah, everyone, please, free guide, grab it, and I think you'll find great benefit from it there. So yes, I've dropped it into both places. So okay. Please grab that, and I'd love your feedback on it too. I put a lot of effort into it.
Okay, great. Well, I'm excited to check that out. So one of the things that I know that you and I have spoken before is you have a passion for something that I do as well, and a lot of the people that I connect with, and that is, that ancient wisdom, the metaphysics, whatever you want to call it. Can you tell us how you weave that in and what we should be doing? I know what I do, but
absolutely. So I was just talking about, kind of my bucket number 7, all the scientific, the latest cutting edge biohacking, if you will, to use a term that's gotten a little bit overused. But none of that matters if you don't do the fundamentals, stuff that we as humanity have been doing for thousands of years. Like, are you breathing properly? I'm a big proponent of meditation. I'm a big proponent of gratitude. I'm a big proponent of grounding yourself, getting into the earth in your bare feet. Clean air, clean water, clean food. That's becoming harder and harder, all those things, every day. But, getting to the fundamentals, having a spiritual practice, whatever that looks like for you, it could be organized religion. It could just be something else, like whatever it is for you. I'm a huge proponent of, I don't do this myself per se when I work with clients, and I will procure those resources for my one-on-one clients if they need it. But it's funny, if you would have asked me 8-10 years ago about energy work and some of this type of stuff, again, my first profession was a CPA. I was an accountant. I was very logical, that side of my brain. Now you ask me, I've done some of this work myself. It is, these are things that we've been doing, that are the medicine man, the shamans, our leaders, spiritual or otherwise, throughout as society, our ancestors went up. We've had them as part of our culture, and I've benefited from some of those things now for my own personal development. So I think all these things need to be taken account with the latest cutting edge science, with the latest, best, greatest that we know from any one of those topics I mentioned earlier. So
yeah, I use a lot of those practices myself and have for 40 years. My daughter, when she was 16, she went away to college for the first time. So she was really young, and I knew there was going to be some anxiety. And, I mean, I know, this statistic, the American Medical Association says 80% of diseases are caused by stress. Everybody thinks, oh, it's our genes and all of that, but that's not really true. And so I have been very mindful to, she's not necessarily going to take supplements and stuff like that when she's away at college for the first time at 16. And so I said, when you get stressed, go outside and hug a tree. And, I've taught her some of those practices, and they can be so powerful. So I love that you combine, what we're learning scientifically with some of those ancient traditions.
Yeah, and I can't be a bigger proponent of just doing simple breath work. I mean, there's a million flavors of breath work, and some of them have different purposes. And I've done crazy experiments, and maybe we'll talk about that, maybe we won't. But just doing a simple box breathing, or 4-6-8, or anything like that, just takes 20 or 30 seconds, and it just brings your cortisol levels down, brings your heart rate down, everything, like just fundamental stuff that we've been doing for 10,000 years or longer.
Right. So if somebody wants to get started, like, let's say there's somebody who, they're kind of in that traditional realm of, you decline when you age, and gee, my parents had this. I mean, one of the things that makes me crazy, if I interact with Western doctors, is, they want to know, well, did your parents have this? Did your brothers have that, or sisters, or whatever? And it's like, that is so irrelevant to my life, because my life is so different than theirs is. So if somebody's wanting to get started, what are some of the first things that you would say? Okay, look, you may not want to jump in completely, but start with these first 1, 2, or 3 things. Where would you tell people to start?
Absolutely. And I'm going to answer your question, but I want to come back to what you said, because I have having this conversation earlier today with someone about, ancestry and genetics, and, oh, my mom had this, and my aunt had this, and my grandma had this, and I'm destined to get this, and it's genetic. And like, that's a bunch of BS. Mm-hmm. So, depending on, on what we're talking about, it's going to vary, the percentage, but let's call it a blanket average. 80% of something is all lifestyle related. Genetics plays like maybe 20%. Sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a bit more, but it's not much more on some of those. So 80% is lifestyle, is the epigenetics, what you do in your lifestyle to turn those genes on or off. And when I was mentioning this earlier today, the person was just blown away. They had never heard that before. So it's like, oh, but we all, yeah, because you all have the same lifestyle. That's why you're following in your mom's footsteps and your grandma's footsteps, because you have the same lifestyle. You're eating the same foods. And actually, I would argue you're not even eating the same foods that your grandma ate, because things that got bastardized, like, it's not the same kind of flour that your grandma cooked with. It's not the same XYZ type of thing. So yeah, I love that you brought that up. So to answer your question, again, back to the earlier part, just learn how to sleep properly, and actually like get enough rest. I think that's number one. Simple thing to do, costs nothing, right? That there's no cost to that. I think learn how to breathe properly. Too many people are mouth breathers. Our mouths are for eating, our nose are for breathing. Mm-hmm. Simple. Mm-hmm. So if you're a mouth breather, and if you don't know you are, you probably are. Very simple things to learn how to breathe properly. I've been mouth taping for 4 years now. It's been huge for me. I can tell it on I'm not wearing it, but my sleep data makes a huge difference for me.
So wait, you tape your mouth shut?
I tape my mouth when I go to sleep, so I'm forced to breathe through my nose. It's gotten to the point where I think I don't need it anymore, but it's just like a comfort thing now to actually wear it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, force you to breathe through your nose, and which is what you're supposed to do. And we can talk about, maybe that's another conversation another time, the benefits of nose breathing. But that's what humans are meant to breathe through the nose and use their mouth for eating and talking. Mm-hmm. So get proper sleep, learn how to breathe properly, and just move. I think if I'm just going to keep it to 3, is just move. That can mean whatever it means for you. Mm-hmm. I'm a huge proponent of just low-level movement throughout your day. Humans were meant to walk. We're meant to move forward. Mm-hmm. That's how our bodies were designed. So low-level walking doesn't even have to be super stressful. Just start with that. Mm-hmm. Depending where you're coming from, you're getting just off the couch. You already do a little bit, whatever. Just increase it a little bit. And then if you want to ramp it up, go to a jog, whatever, just movement in general. And I include strength training in there as well. But if we're just keeping it nice and simple, just get moving, whatever's comfortable for you. Whatever you're doing now, just take it up just a little bit and you'll see benefits.
And one of the things I do is if I'm in the kitchen doing something, like I'm cooking something and I'm waiting for the pot to boil or whatever, I dance in the kitchen. So just, I'm not very good at it and certainly wouldn't want anyone to see it. I'm a little embarrassed to even say that I do that. But yeah, that's one of the things that I do is just, do a little dance, and that improves your mood too.
Absolutely. I love that you said that, Deborah. No, yes, your mood, but I think it's also important. And many people, I think, don't think of this, but it's super important. Again, I'll put it in the, you brought it up in the sense of movement, but I'll bring it up in the sense of mindset. Acting young, being playful, and having the mindset that you can be silly and move around. And I dance with my girl. I have two girls. I dance with them all the time and goof around. They're like embarrassed by me, whatever. But like it keeps me young. It's fun. We laugh, we giggle, and that is actually part of mindset with healthy aging. And actually, I wasn't planning to bring this up, but it reminds me. And I just heard the stat like just 2 days ago. I was on a podcast, a newest study they did for people who have that mindset of like, I'm going to age well, and I'm looking forward to I'm looking forward to play with my grandchildren or XY, whatever it is for you, but had that positive mindset around healthy aging. 7.5 years, 7.5 years longer health span in the study. Who doesn't want 7.5 years of longer health span? Remember, not lifespan, health span.
Right.
Like all about mindset. So I love that you brought that up. Just play whatever you liked when you were a kid. Maybe it was playing soccer, maybe you don't have the skills, but just kick the ball around with your grandson or whoever. Ride your bike, go swimming, dance, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Super important.
Yeah. A little side note. So I coach people a lot on using quantum physics to make their life better, make more money, whatever it is. And those who will play are far more successful than those who are very, you would think, well, I want to grow my business or I want to make more money, so I've got to be very serious about it. And that's actually not true. It's actually the opposite. The more they will play, the more they will create the life that they want. So it fits in very nicely with what you're doing.
Absolutely. And you kind of, not to go off on a tangent, but I think too that a lot of people don't realize is when you put the steps in place for better health and reduce stress, even though you might be like, oh, I need to get this done, I need to build my business, I need to XYZ, get the presentation, whatever, there's a million excuses to put your health in the back burner. But actually, when you get your health in check, even if it's not perfect, but you just make positive moves in the right direction and bring your stress down, it benefits you in your personal and your business life. You actually make faster decisions. You have better cognitive function. You make better decisions, faster decisions. You're less stressed. You show up in your relationships, personal and business-wise, much better. You don't get triggered as fast. Once you bring inflammation down, you bring stress down. So it's all interrelated. Everything ties back to health. Although a lot of people just give health lip service because they're so focused on their goals, their professional goals, their business goals. Look, you get that in check, it'll work its way up.
Yeah. Well, people say the same thing about meditation, and I know you mentioned meditation as something to aid in longevity. And people will say, I don't have time to meditate, or I don't really like it. And it's like, you know what? I meditate a number of times throughout the day. I start my day with that. Before I get out of bed, I do a meditation, and I'll meditate throughout the day. And when people say I don't have time for it, it's like, if you would just spend 15 minutes meditating, it would mean that you would have to spend less time striving to get things done. So I'm guessing that's what you're talking about too.
Absolutely. And I heard this, and I can't recall who I can attribute it to, but if somebody says, I don't have time for 10 minutes of meditation, then the response is, well, then you actually need 20. Right. So no, meditation, super important. I can only speak for myself and my clients, but when I meditate, I've on a 2,100 something consecutive days of meditation. I just started this streak. I thought, let's see if I can do it, for 30 days, 60 days, a year. And now it's just me now. Right. But so many, not only business ideas come to me, divergent pieces of information that I wouldn't think consciously are relevant come together when I meditate, like, oh, that might actually fit, or connections between people. Oh, I forgot to reach out for Deborah for that. Like, I didn't even think about that, but it comes to through meditation. Or I totally forgot to call that person. Like, just things get recalled back to me. So it's been super beneficial to me and many of my clients as well. And I challenge everyone, like, just try. If you're not trying it, not already meditating, just get one of these free apps, do a guided one to just get started, and just start with 5 minutes. That's how I started, 5 minutes. And now I do 20 minutes or longer every day.
So I always like to hear, I guess, because I get inspired, if it's something new that I'm starting and I'm not sure I really want to start it. I always get inspired by hearing stories of how other people did it and what they achieved. Can you tell us maybe about a couple of your clients and the successes that they've had?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I mentioned earlier, like, it's never too late to start. So I had one client last year, 73-year-old grandmother, and she was on thyroid medication, and she went and got her labs and went to go see her doctor, and her labs were not good. And her doctor was like, okay, you need to go on blood pressure medication, you need to go on a statin for cholesterol, and there was something else that's escaped me at the moment, et cetera. And she's like reading her the riot act, and she was very upset. I honestly, probably his bedside manner wasn't there, but she was very, very upset, and we had a common connection. So she somehow found me and contacted me, and he wasn't gonna refill her thyroid medication if she didn't get on all these other medications, and she was very upset by that. So anyway, long story short, we worked together only part-time. It was kind of a one-off because we had a common connection, but we worked together part-time for 6 months. She already ate pretty good. There's very little we need to nutrition or supplementation. She did a lot of low-level movement, but what she was missing was breath work, and strength training. So we implemented a little bit more intense cardio, just a little bit, strength training and breath work. And in 6 months, when she went to get her labs done again, while not perfect, her blood pressure had come down enough, her cholesterol had come down enough that her doctor was like, I don't know what you're doing, but keep it up. I'm going to give you a subscription for another 6 months. And not only that, the added benefit, 73 years old, 6 months, she lost 32 pounds as well.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah. And can I share one more? Do we have time for one more?
Yeah.
So I also get this, I'll give you other end of the spectrum. So I had a fellow who approached me a couple of years ago, and he actually joined my one-on-one. So the full 7 buckets that I mentioned earlier. Young guy, low to mid 40s, A-type personality, C-suite executive, very, very fit. And he was like very skeptical, like what can I do for him, type of thing. So, but I kind of explained my process, and he was actually very interested in like bucket number 7, sort of like that cutting edge technologies, the biohacking, and that's really why he signed up. But again, I work with people, right? Fundamentals, right? Mindset, all those things I mentioned earlier. We start there, and we'll get to that stuff. Long and short of it is, he was overtraining. So we actually dialed it back. He wasn't doing anything for recovery. And I'll just say this to everyone, whether you exercise or not, recovery is not sitting on the couch and watching Netflix. Okay. That's not active recovery. So, we make sure you got to learn how to stretch. He ended up getting an infrared sauna because he actually lived local to me. So, he was able to try mine out, and he had bought his own, doing hot, cold contrast therapy, breath work. We dialed back his workout. We made out quite a few tweaks to his nutrition. Again, he was working out so hard that physically he looked good, but inside he had so much stress, so much inflammation. So we changed his diet around, brought it basically got a lot of the junk food out. Again, an executive on the go, grabbing things at the coffee shop, et cetera, probably brought it to a little bit more of a lower carb diet, a little bit, not too much. And he was, thanks for the question, Lou. I'll come to that later. And the breath work, dialed back the exercise. But the big thing for him, so 2 things for him. So via the nutritional changes, so this, I didn't know this. He didn't say this up front when we first started working, but he actually, so 40-year-old fit guy, he actually was on a CPAP machine, which is rare. It's not uncommon, but it's rare. So via changing making some changes to his nutrition and breath work. We actually were able to get him off his CPAP machine. And the other big thing, again, as part of working with my clients, especially my one-on-one clients, we worked together for a year, probing, asking about mindset and relationships, which is, part of mindset and motivation in our community and our relationships, asking some deep questions. We, uncovered some things with some of his personal relationships that he then went and worked on. And at the end of our year working together, he said, the number one thing, Deepak, the number one thing I got from you is you helped me identify some problems in my relationships and to work on them. So getting off the CPAP machine, awesome. Secondary, tweaking things, I'm recovering better, or I'm not having to work out so hard. Great, that's awesome. It was actually his relationship. So it spans the spectrum. So young male, 40s, grandma, 70s, everything in between. So
wow, awesome. I have a client who I'm gonna hook you up with because he's so fit. He needs to get off his CPAP machine. So I'm gonna hook you up. Yeah. And Lulu's asking, which infrared sauna do you recommend?
Yeah, so I personally have, and I recommend, and I don't have an affiliate or nothing like that. So I got there's nothing, no vested interest. I like the clear light sauna. And the reason I like that is it is low EMF. So it's one thing to be in your sauna and detoxing and getting that red light and all that, but I don't want to be like getting microwave signals at the same time. So the clear light is the lowest EMF one out there. It's a little bit more pricey because of how they do in the technology. So, I mean, whatever works for you, if you want to get, a lower end one or something, you can buy saunas at Costco, whatever works for you in your budget, that's great. Just be mindful of that. And that's why I prefer the clear light sauna. So,
Okay. Hey, diverting just for a second, do you use any of those EMF reducing things for like your computer, your cell phone, or anything like that?
absolutely. So not to go too much into the woo type of thing, because there have been some interesting and promising studies, and I've tried to quantify some of these myself, and I haven't been able to quantify them in any manner myself. I like the woo too, Lulu. Thank you. Thanks for your comment.
I was just gonna say me too.
So what we do have, I do have those dots that have like sacred geometry sort of embedded, or I don't know if embedded is the right word, designed on them, that I have on all our everything electronics on both my monitors here, my desk, my box, my Wi-Fi router, my phone, kids' iPads, all that. We do have I forget what they're called, but basically these sort of triangles that are supposed to sort of not block, because we still get signals in, but just sort of harmonize the signals, Wi-Fi signals, EMF signals with our own bodies. So I have two of those. We have a two-story. So one on the main floor, one on the bottom floor, and it's supposed to give about a 1,500 square foot coverage. I always have everything wired. I also have headphones that are specifically blockers as well. And then I have a pendant, or it's more like a keychain that I'll wear in my pocket when I'm going somewhere. And then I also have, I mostly work from home, so I kind of control my environment as best as possible. But I also have some clothing that I'll wear that's lined with silver and stuff to block it. So again, that's a bit of a more advanced technique for those who want to go that route. That's not necessarily fundamentals, but that's what I do and our family uses. Yeah.
So I know you have a workshop coming up. Are you going to be talking about any of this in your workshop? Or can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so in the workshop, we're going to be talking. So let me just take a step back. So yeah, so I got a number of workshops coming up. I'll drop the link here in just a minute, both here on Zoom and in Facebook as well. And there's a series of them. There's actually 8 of them. There's 4 on the website right now, and then there'll be a couple more released next week as well. So the workshop is just really kind of what we've been talking about today. Just get people aware of, the concept of aging and how it's a broken paradigm, what we have in our kind of in the media and our lexicon of society. I want people to think bigger and bolder and buck the system. Right? We don't have to think of aging like how maybe our parents experience it or our grandparents experience it. So that's kind of what the workshop is about. There's a little bit of education, some of the stuff we talked about today, sleep and nutrition and that's sort of thing. And the workshop also is going to talk about, what my group program is all about, which I won't get too much into here. But in the group program, obviously we get it. It's a 10-week program. We get into it and we do talk about all the 5 buckets that I mentioned earlier, the first 5, and EMF is, and environment, other environmental factors is part of the course as well. So yes.
Okay, yeah, great. Because I would really like to learn more about that specifically, in addition to the other things, but that specifically, I'd like to learn more about that. So that's awesome. So you're going to drop a link. It's a free workshop. Am I correct about that?
It's a free workshop. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
They run for an hour and there'll be Q&A and ask all sorts of questions.
Okay.
Yeah. And I just dropped it here in Zoom and I'm just going to put it in the Facebook as well.
Okay.
And again, the workshops, the first workshop is this coming Friday. And there's another one Saturday, and then there's the next couple of weeks, there's a number of them as well.
Okay. Wow. That's awesome. Will they be the same or will they cover different topics, each one?
The workshop, the base information is the same, but of course it's very interactive, these workshops. So I'm going to be posing some questions, some deep thinking questions to the participants, and depending on the responses I get back from everyone, it's gonna change a bit. Of course, Q&A, you never know. Plus, for people who register, I'm actually sending a video ask link out to just get to really dial in what people really want to get out of it, and then I'm customizing it as best I can to those answers as well. So all the video asks I've received back thus far, what people want to know, it's already built into the workshop. So I guess I've anticipated what most people want to hear already anyway. So
okay, Deepak, we're having a little bit of trouble with the link. It's not hyperlinked for some reason. And I just tried to paste it in and make it, but it's not.
Oh, okay. You know what? Let me just drop. I typed it in. Let me just drop the actual from the website. Let's see if that makes it a little bit better
here. Okay.
There we go. I think it's hyperlinked now.
Okay. And you know what? Your free gift that you gave also is not hyperlinked.
Okay.
So you might want to do that.
You bet. Let's do that right now. Let's do that right now. Yeah, I don't want people to miss the free gift. That's everyone loves a free gift, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, and I think in Facebook they both did hyperlink, so I think we're okay there. We're good there. So
okay, all right, great. Okay, well, thank you so much for being with us today. I mean, I really think this was awesome. Thank you. Is there anything else that you want to let people know, just as a little something extra to get them?
Absolutely, Deborah. Do we have time? I know we're kind of running up, but do we have time? How I got to where I'm at. We didn't really.
Okay, sure.
Talk about. Is that okay? Is that I don't want to.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I alluded earlier. I'm a CPA by profession, so I think it's an integral part of where I'm at now. So I was always the sick kid. I had chronic bronchitis and allergies and the whole deal, and essentially an autoimmune condition. I was always the chubby kid. I was always overweight as far as back as I can remember. At 18 years old, I was over 270 pounds. I'm a little bit under 6 feet, so I would be classified as morbidly obese at 18 years old. 100 pounds heavier than I am now. But what a real came to me was 8 years ago. What really came to head for me was 8 years ago. My youngest daughter was just a baby. I ended up hurting my back so bad. I had no flexion. I couldn't bend over at the waist. So I made, putting on your socks, putting on your shoes, very painful. Getting in and out of a chair, very painful. And that includes the toilet. But the real impetus, the real low point was I couldn't pick her up out of her crib.
Wow.
10-pound baby, I couldn't pick her up out of her crib. I was too worried that I'd get shooting pain all of a sudden, like drop her or something like that. So my wife would have to pick her up, put her on my lap, pick her up off my lap, and when I tried to get up out of a chair. So that was my low point. I couldn't do any activities. I couldn't golf anymore. By this time I had started running a little bit prior to this injury. That probably actually what broke me. It was the final, literally the last straw that broke the camel's back, was probably overdoing it with cardio training, like pounding the pavement. But I couldn't do anything, but I couldn't pick up my daughter. That was my low point. And I talked earlier about your why, your purpose. I remember how sucky my life was. I never want to go back there, even though my daughter's big now and I can barely pick her up now. But that's my why, my purpose, my mission, my guiding light, whatever you want to call it, whatever works for you, is I never want to go back to how I felt. So every decision is go forward. And as people saw that, people only see, I didn't recognize it myself at the time, but now with my knowledge now and looking back in hindsight, I probably was in depression. Again, I wasn't doing any activities I wanted. I could barely move. I was in pain all the time. I couldn't pick up my daughter, probably in depression. People don't see those internal struggles. They only see the outside.
Right.
So I was trying to find, so the Western medical system, I like to say, wasted 18 months of my health, ineffective treatments, misdiagnosis, run around through the system. Finally, I took matters into my own hands, paid out of pocket, did a ton of research, found a modality that worked for me. Not a cheap modality and not a magic bullet, nothing ever is. And it took a number of months to sort of work through that. But as part of that and trying to heal my back, I found the notion of inflammation and bringing inflammation down systemically in our body, primarily through nutrition. I think is one of the biggest things that we put upon ourselves, inflammation we put on ourselves. So I talked to the doctor who's doing my procedure, and I said, does this make sense? If I bring inflammation down systemically, this procedure should work better. He's like, yeah, absolutely. So that day I cold turkey started eating clean. I use air quotes because that's evolved over time. But as I started to, bring down inflammation, changing lifestyle habits, primarily nutrition, not only was I recovering from the procedure itself better, I was getting more flexion. I was able to bend a little bit more every time, but the weight started to drop off. And I didn't really notice it at first because for someone who struggled with weight their entire life, I wasn't one to step on the scale all the time. But one day I kind of, you grab an old pair of pants out of the back of the closet because you haven't done laundry in a while. And hey, these are kind of big. What's going on? I kind of asked my wife, I think I might have lost some weight. And she's like, what are you, a dummy? Of course you have. Like, you can totally see it in your face. So I get out the scale. I'm like, oh my gosh. And long story short, eventually healed my back to doing pretty much anything I want to do. My autoimmune condition cleared up. I haven't been sick in essentially 8 years. I think I had COVID last year for like 3 days, but other than that, I haven't been sick in 8 years. And I lost the last 60 of that 100 pounds in a matter of months. And people started asking me, coworkers, colleagues, business associates, like, hey, can I take you out for a coffee? Can I buy you lunch? Like, what are you doing? So read this book, and here's a blog post, and this is what I learned. And pretty soon I was like, I enjoy helping people on their journey more than I like being an accountant. So, I ruminated on that decision for a while, but back in, I guess 2017 I started, but essentially I've been coaching since 2018. And it started as what we now call a side hustle, but I do it full time now. And I started working with people who were like me originally, back pain, weight loss. But as I evolved myself, like I mentioned earlier, to be a centenarian plus, to have a healthy, long health span, I've evolved what I work on with people into the program that I described earlier for people for their own longevity and anti-aging goals. So yeah, I just wanted to share that just as like how I got to where I'm at today. So
I love that. Thank you. Well, when I introduced you, I, covered a little bit of that, but certainly not at that level. And wow, I love it. Thank you.
well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess your original question, one nugget as we wrap up here for people. I just really want people to know, we have this idea of aging in society, and it's through the media, what our doctors tell us, what pharma tells us, et cetera, et cetera. I just want people to be aware it doesn't need to be that way anymore. We can do so much more, starting with the fundamentals, the ancient practices, ancient wisdom, all the way to the cutting edge science and technology, and we can move forward. So I just really want people to think bigger, think bolder, take action. It's never too late. Doesn't matter. Remember, I shared the story. One of my past clients, 73 years old, and the results she had, and everywhere in between. So just start, and the fundamentals: sleep, breathe properly, and start moving.
Great. Thanks, Lulu. Great to see you.
Thank you for your comment, Connie, as well. And thanks, Lulu.
Awesome. Well, that's great. And I think that one of the things that I think is most important is to get people to really understand that it is possible. You do not have to live your 60s, your 70s, your 80s sick and going to the doctor and declining and miserable. You can be vibrant and
Absolutely.
have a great, healthy life.
Yeah, and you shared a couple stats at the beginning. We don't need to rehash those, but like we didn't even talk about, and we don't need to talk about, but just the costs of aging and being sick, the real hard costs, and that blows people away. And I do talk about that a bit in the workshop, but it's not even the hard costs. I think the biggest thing that people don't even think about, it's the cost of not spending time with your family, not being able to do activities with your family. That missed opportunity, I think, that is even the bigger cost, let alone the hard costs if you have to, go see doctors, medications. God forbid you should get dementia after being at home. That's costs like $250,000 a year in some jurisdictions. Like that could bankrupt you, right? So yeah, it's super important, and it's a reason why it's the number one thing I work on with people. Starts up here. It's all about mindset, first. So
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate you being with us today.
And Deborah, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you and talk to your audience, even live or on the replay as well. And hopefully people, get a benefit. And yeah, please, if you have the opportunity, download the free gift or come check out one of the workshops if you get the opportunity.
Well, I'm definitely going to do both. So
Awesome.
hopefully
Looking forward to
everyone
seeing
else
you
too.
there.
All right. Thank you so much.